Hello, everyone. My name is Christopher. Welcome to my presentation on the design pattern of ideation. So a question that you may have in your mind right now is, what is ideation? I chose this quote from the DMI, and the DMI is a Design Management Institute. They're an international organization that connects design to business, to culture, and to customers. DMI states that ideation is an initial stage of structuring a complete design concept. Ideation can be thought of as a concept generation process or a means of constructive brainstorming. Ultimately, it is an organized technique used in structured sessions where team members can discuss a thinking aloud process about how to innovatively meet the stakeholders' needs. Ideation is effectively used in this design pattern. Empathize is centered around a foundational principle of understanding people. This stage importantly connects you as a designer to the world of the user. You may ask yourself, as a designer, who are they? And what needs do they have in regards to the product or challenge being addressed? Define is a stage of thinking and clarifying design aspects. This specific pattern step is effectively used to make sense of the empathy knowledge collected in the previous step. By defining the needs and insights of the stakeholders, you, as the designer, can gain a clear point of perspective. Ideate. Ideate is the stage where ideas are generated. This is where the design group's creative juices can flow into crazy ideas to build off of, to become refined, creative, innovative solutions. Now, these solutions focused on the stakeholders' needs. Next would be prototype. Prototype can be simply taken, or it can be a complex step, depending on how deep you want to go into the prototyping stage. The purpose behind prototyping is to produce something an individual can interact with. Whether it is a picture or a model, this stage can produce helpful feedback and clarity as the users and designers interact with this prototype. Lastly, test. Test stage is essential. It is essential to getting the fine-tuning, critiquing of the design elements that you've created. So essentially a critiquing stage. After refining the content or material from the previous stages, testing can be used to get formal feedback and gain more empathy from the stakeholders as they review the design process. So if needed at this point, you can go ahead and readdress their needs that they display in the test stage by following the same design pattern. So a rinse and repeat. So the upsides of ideation are ideation can generate ideas and solutions, not just plain ideas and solutions or mundane ones that have been thought of before, as we'll go in further into the upsides. But ideation includes sketching, prototyping, brainstorming, and even taking advantage of the worst possible idea technique. So worst possible idea technique focuses on there never being a bad idea, but just trying to get the creative juices flowing. A lot of the time, we kind of just toss out, oh, that's a terrible idea. Well, you never can build off of it and actually refine it. And a lot of the bad ideas aren't so bad once you actually kind of filter out what makes the ideas bad in your eyes and your perspective. You build on them, refine them, and then you can actually go ahead and create something that is outside the box. So asking the right questions is also an important upside. Ideation will help designers ask the right questions in an innovative, strong way of focusing on the users and their needs. So once you're thinking of their needs, you can actually focus on addressing their concerns and asking the right questions. Thinking outside the box was something I mentioned earlier. just breaking away from the norms and actually coming up with something that is innovative. So in the last bubble, I have strengthened the team's unity by combining perspectives and strengths. So through this process of the team coming together, sharing ideas and refining those ideas and combining those ideas, you can come up with much higher levels of innovation. So some downsides to ideation. So the goal of ideation is to come up with the one big idea. Now, with that in mind, to get to that one big idea, the process can literally go through hundreds of other ideas. So a time factor is definitely a downside, not to mention the investment of those participating in that process. Next, thinking outside the box is hard. It can be very difficult. We're trained and we grow up in the society of thinking within the status quo. And this process of getting outside the box is actually, as I mentioned in the last bubble here, most people aren't good at unstructured, abstract brainstorming. This idea of getting outside the box is uncomfortable. And in a business setting, it may not even be the right direction, or you may feel like you're not heading in the right direction, that your management team members wish your ideas would go. And so it becomes uncomfortable. It is also difficult to engage everyone. As a big group and a team, it may be difficult to get everyone's input if someone is quiet or if someone feels uncomfortable, or their ideas are being overruled by others. So that is the downside. That can also be counteracted by the leader of the conversation accepting and running with the wild ideas. So that are the downsides of ideation. Lastly, when do you use ideation? Or when is the best case scenario of using ideation? There are different levels that you can actually apply ideation. Initially, you can do it in the big picture of what you're looking for in the final product. What are you trying to accomplish? So we actually did this in our project for the pantry and recipe management software. During our team meetings, we tried to come up with brainstorming ideas of how we want things to interact, how we want the users to interact with it. And then we actually followed a lot of the design pattern, which I discussed earlier, and getting to know the needs of the user and then building off of that. Now, you can also use ideation on smaller levels, actually smaller aspects within the big picture. So I don't think ideation should be limited to just a one-time done for a project. It should be revisited many times as you come across a challenge within your design process. Brainstorm, sit down, build off of what you know about the user, define their needs, and then go ahead and use ideation as a process of creatively coming up with innovative solutions. Lastly, the ideal moment for using ideation would be in an official session after meeting with stakeholders and after learning about what they need and what they want. At this point, you can go ahead and create ideas based on what the end user had in mind. Lastly, you can be creative to meet their needs without being mundane and repeating others' innovations. So instead of repeating what others have done, you can actually come up with a solid solution, and this would be an ideal moment where ideation, in my opinion, outweighs the bad things. So the ideal moment to use this would be in an official session. So I appreciate the time that you took to listen to my presentation. I sure hope you've enjoyed it. If you have any questions, please reach out to me and go ahead and review my slides if you want to go ahead and you feel like you missed something, you want to review what I've covered today. Take care for now.